we're about to start the show, and you know the drill. If you've been here before and you have something important to share, please add a capital letter Q to your comment. And if you are watching live for the first time, please let us know by writing the word new, and we'll give you a nice little welcome. Enjoy the broadcast. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our morning get-together live here on Facebook. Although today we are not live. That's right. I've run away one more time, and there's a good reason for it. 2 days ago, I scheduled an interview with dear friend and longtime Vallarta resident Gary Green, who is currently the president of the Amapas Neighborhood Association. And while we were scheduled, or we had agreed to discuss the neighborhood association primarily, Gary ended up being so generous of information and fun anecdotes from his arrival in Puerto Vallarta almost 2 decades ago to his fascination with traveling throughout Mexico, even though his Spanish is less, even though he has less knowledge of Spanish than you would imagine. He has ventured through the country. He offers some wonderful tips for first-time travelers throughout the country. Then we touched base on everything from the Amapas Neighborhood Association to the street in Amapas that was destroyed due to the landslide. And then we talked about how he, along with Tim Longpre of PVRPV, were the founders of the modern carnival. And he told me a little bit about his take on how the event has progressed. So I truly hope you're going to enjoy this rather lengthy interview, and you will learn some insights about all these topics and so much more. Take a look. Okay, now it is a pleasure to introduce you to longtime Puerto Vallarta resident and current president of the Amapas Neighborhood Association, Mr. Gary Green. Gary, how are you today?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. So
it is such a pleasure.
Inviting me.
It is such a pleasure to have you here for so many reasons. I know that you have been we have so much to unpack because I know that you love traveling through Mexico. I know that you've been here for almost 2 decades as a full-time resident, and I know that you are the current president of the Amapas Neighborhood Association. So just as Julie Andrews might say, let's start at the very beginning. How did you discover Puerto Vallarta?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you and commend you on the wonderful broadcast. So it certainly put a lot of minds at ease during the COVID times. And I know I speak on behalf of all of the cluster members that they certainly appreciate everything that you've done. But as far as Puerto Vallarta, I've been coming down to Puerto Vallarta for many, many years. And again, about 18 years or so ago, I decided to kind of pull the switch on living in Southern California and move down here full time. I'm very fortunate because I am employed. My real job is I'm the director of corporate development for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. So I've been with that organization. It'll be 40 years this October 1st. So
wow,
it was very nice that they hired me when I was 4 years old. So I thought that was very nice. But in any case, a lot of progress has been made on that front. And so I think I have volunteerism kind of in my blood, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I certainly call Puerto Vallarta home.
What a dream job, because you're able to do what you do from over here and enjoy the beauty of living in our city. Now, you got here 18 years ago. I got here 22 years ago. Give and take. We both have seen the city grow. What was it back then that captivated your heart, and how has your like or dislike of Puerto Vallarta changed through time?
Sure. I mean, obviously, I think it's the people first and foremost, the culture. You know, everybody talks to one another and says good morning. If you did that at Starbucks back in the United States, I think people would look at you a little crazy and probably get their pepper spray out. But just everything about it now, it's obviously, it is kind of challenging in terms of all the new buildings going on and the lack of infrastructure in the city that is certainly is something that's on our, you know, our radar when it comes to the Amapas Neighborhood Association.
It has changed, hasn't it? I mean, it's funny because when I first got here, I wanted a small town next to the ocean. If I look at the parameters that were important to me at the time, and I wanted to apply them today, I would probably end up in places like Bucerias or maybe San Pancho because the city has grown. But I continue to love living here. What keeps you in love with living in Puerto Vallarta, if there is such a thing?
Sure. Again, I think it's the people. I have a lot of friends here. I also do like, you know, leaving from time to time, especially during the heat. I am fortunate because I do travel quite a bit for my work. So I do go up to the States quite a bit. But as you mentioned earlier, I really love to travel within Mexico. I think those that come here for an extended period of time that don't get out of Dodge should really reconsider that, since there's so many absolutely incredible cities and pueblos, you know, throughout the country.
Let me pick your brain majorly on that subject because this is very important to me. You know, I'm a proud Mexican. I love exploring my country. And I'm always, one of the main goals here at Coffee and Headlines is to expand people's comfort level as they make the conscious decision to see more of Mexico. Let me ask you first, was Puerto Vallarta your first experience in Mexico, or had you traveled through Mexico prior to exploring Puerto Vallarta?
It really was my first. I think the very first time I came down here, it was part of a cruise. So it was literally, you know, one day here, one day in Mazatlan, and one day in Cabo. But, you know, Puerto Vallarta was certainly the city that attracted me.
And how or when did you develop the curiosity to explore Mexico beyond Puerto Vallarta?
I think really early on. It's not pretty much right after I moved down here. Of course, made several visits to Guadalajara, which I love. Then I went to Mexico City. And of course, if you tell somebody that you're going to Mexico City, they think you're absolutely crazy and out of your mind. But I really fell in love with that city. And it's 22 million people. I was very nervous the first time I went to Mexico City. And I recall quite a funny joke that I went up to a police officer and I kindly tapped them on the shoulder. And I said, disculpa, es tu pito peligroso. And the police officer looked at me and he said, mande, is mi pito peligroso? And I said, ay, perdón. So I looked on my phone and I meant Tepito, which is kind of a sketchy area within Mexico City. But obviously I wasn't arrested and he had a good sense of humor. So.
Okay, take me to that trip and tell me, back then, on a scale from 1 to 10, where was your command of the Spanish language?
Boy, it was. I mean, I picked it up. I picked it up on the street, so I really haven't went to any classes or anything. But I certainly know enough to get in trouble and to get out of trouble. And of course, all of your lessons assist greatly on as well. So I always look forward to that.
And I go to the language issue because I do believe, and I'd love to hear your opinion, that when it comes to English speaking, Puerto Vallarta tends to spoil visitors and locals rotten. Yes. And I do believe that the expectation can be difficult to reconcile when you step away from Puerto Vallarta and you realize that you are in a country where the most spoken language is by 98% of the population speaks Spanish. Where was it most challenging to you in all these years that you've been exploring Mexico?
Sure. I think my favorite cities in which are very few English-speaking people. I love Atlixca, Puebla. I think it's just an unbelievable town, and the people. I really like the Yucatan area. Campeche, I think, is a marvelous city to visit. Merida, certainly one of my favorite cities, and I usually go there a couple times a year. I'm certainly looking forward to, taking a trip on the Maya train and going through all those cities down there. I did happen to go on El Chepe up north, about 10 or 15 years ago, and that experience was absolutely amazing. And the Grand Canyon is just a small hole in the wall compared to the Copper Canyon area.
I hear much about El Chepe, and both El Chepe and the Maya train are definitely in my bucket list. Let me ask you, actually, let me step back. I've had the pleasure to open the eyes of some friends to, for example, Guadalajara, because it's easy to get there from here. And these are friends that don't speak Spanish, and they have quickly realized that it's not as scary as it might seem. Of course, if you stay in the main cultural, historical, tourist areas and so forth and so on, what kind of advice would you give any English-speaking local folk that are curious to explore other parts of Mexico, but may feel a little uncertain about how to go about it, how to deal with a language barrier, and then issues of security, which, for better or worse, a lot of people think about security while exploring Mexico?
Yeah, I think it's just important to really just jump in. I think the nationals are just, very patient. So if you even try your best and are only correct with 10% of the words, I think that message still is conveyed properly. And I think the locals really kind of appreciate the attempt that is given. So you just kind of need to go in there and face your fears. You're obviously going to be making some mistakes, but they'll correct you, and then you move on from there.
There's an expression that I use, and I use it very carefully because I don't want people to feel that it has some kind of discrimination overtones. But a lot of people that come here from the United States and maybe even Canada as well, when they first arrive, they're exposed to all kinds of conventions that may not be familiar. The waiting at the bank, the dealing with legal issues, so forth and so on. And I tend to think that many of us, I lived in the United States for 19 years before coming back to Mexico, and I was certainly Mexicuted a number of times. Do you have any crazy stories that you may have gone through as you adapted yourself to your new life in Mexico?
I think the two that really come to mind is one time I was parked in supposedly an area that I shouldn't have been, and I came to notice that my back license plate was missing. So that was a challenge. So I had to go to one location where I ended up getting 6 copies, and I was literally sent on a scavenger hunt to go to different departments to get stamps. And the final location is Transito did not take it. So apparently my license plate was just stolen. And Transito said if they leave one screw in, that means that they take it. Which is something, I never knew. And then also for some reason, and obviously we have a great system down here with rideshare and buses, but I really wanted a car and a Mexico driver's license literally the week that I moved down here. So I went to the old office, which was, I think, on the second floor of the old in the marina that had the kind of a comparable to the DMV, to get my Mexico license at that point. And so it came time, everything was very, very smooth, probably more smooth than the United States. Then it came time for my picture. Well, of course, the camera wasn't working at that time. So this very nice lady, she pulled out a big drawer of photos, and she said, the camera's not working, but you could pick a photo. And I said, I could take a photo. Like, I'd rather have my photo if it's all right. But if Brad Pitt's photo is in there or somebody, I would be glad to have that. Well, I went the next day and the camera was working, and I have my photo on my driver's license.
Oh, that is the funniest thing. That is the weirdest story I've ever heard.
Incredible. It was very strange. So,
for those people that get exacerbated about those differences, do you have any advice for people to cope?
Just have a nice bottle of wine, and then, or whatever your beverage or other choice is, and just be patient, because it'll be done. And there's some things that are actually a lot quicker in Mexico that I found than in the United States. But again, banking and working with utilities and getting names on and off bills is still it's very, very practically impossible.
Well, if it gives you any consolation, any comfort rather, it happens to us Mexican nationals as well. I mean, I personally dread having to do any kind of bureaucratic process, whether it's a bank or it's government related. It's just a matter of being patient, bringing a Kindle, headphones, a cocktail, I don't know, whatever. But yes, I do realize that the change in culture can make or break you. Let me fast forward to the present time, and invite you to tell us a little bit more about the Amapas Neighborhood Association. Mind you, I have been aware as a resident of the Amapas Neighborhood Association's beautiful work for well over a decade because of my former employment and involvement with projects at Casa Cúpula. And I know that Don Pickens has been a very important member of that puzzle. Tell me how you became involved with the Amapas Neighborhood Association to begin with.
Yeah, actually, this will be my second year as president, and really up before that time, I was a member of the association, but really not active. So I, really went in kind of feet first and learned a lot along the way. Obviously, during COVID time, we didn't have very many activities going on, and right now, we have a lot of different projects that we're incredibly excited about. We have about 60 individual members, and then we have, I believe, about 30 full building members. So when you do the math, it's close to about 600 members total. A lot of people believe that the fees that they pay, which is nominal, it's about 2,000 pesos a year, that pretty much just goes to the overhead and our office, and we have a full-time administrator that's an attorney. But when it comes to specific projects, then that's where we go to our members and do fundraising. Our most ambitious campaign was raising 1 million pesos for the Abdul Stairs. It was very unfortunate. We received literally calls on a daily basis of people, being robbed on the stairs, and obviously a lot of transients that were on the stairs. And now, with new lighting and new rails, we also just hired somebody to do a set of, I believe, 5 murals that will highlight different landmarks of Puerto Vallarta. So it'll be a very Instagrammable moment once that is completed. And then once the recognition wall is finished, then we get to put that baby to bed. And then our next biggest project we get a lot of complaints about the people driving on the highway, especially the motorcycles. We have a robust WhatsApp group that's connected with the officials, and they do respond to us very, very quickly. But there are many, many injuries that are on the highway. So we have a special tope and signage that we want to install in 4 critical areas to hopefully allow people to slow down a little bit. And a lot of these pedestrians think that they have the right of way down here, and that's certainly not the case. And that's where a lot of people get injured. So that'll be we'll tackle that project in this year, 2024.
Well, before we get into 2024, I know that the Amapas Neighborhood Association has produced a beautiful 2.5 minute video that is published on YouTube. And I would like to showcase it here with the viewers, if you don't mind. Let's take a look.
Membership dues are crucial for the success of communities and organizations, including the Amapas Neighborhood Association. They serve as a vital source of funding, showcasing commitment and providing support for the programs, activities, and operations that have made the ANA unique and impactful for over 2 decades. ANA has remained dedicated to its goals in maintaining transparency, despite facing challenges such as the pandemic and currently an unsupportive city administration. We take pride in our recent achievements and remain steadfast in our commitment to both immediate and long-term objectives. Despite having 20 full building members with 216 units, 44 individual members, and 1 business resort member, we now need your support to step up to renew and enlist new members in our fast-growing community. With just 1 full-time employee and a handful of volunteers, we are proud to share our accomplishments in 2023. Renovation of Ababdul Stairs, held a successful Calle Santa Barbara Town Hall, and continue collaboration with the Save Santa Barbara Committee. Installed new trash receptacles in high traffic areas, featuring ANA and donor signage. Recruited 2 new board members. Placed large 180-degree highway mirrors at critical intersections for enhanced safety. Launched a successful e-recycle program. Updated and diligently maintained the ANA Memorial Wall. Created a digital member guide offering exclusive discounts to 24 restaurants and services for our card-carrying members. Conducted ongoing meetings with willing developers to address community concerns. Maintained active neighborhood and security WhatsApp messaging for efficient communication with local authorities. Procured safety materials for future installation on the highway, and currently waiting for city support. Organized and executed successful social events for community engagement. Increased our visibility on social media platforms, and fostered relationships with both English-speaking and Spanish-speaking media outlets. And that's not all. These achievements are a testament to the dedication and hard work of our team. We look forward to continuing our effort to serve and improve our community in the coming year. Visit www.amapaspv.com and follow us on social media. ANA membership costs less than 40 cents a day, and members enjoy incredible returns on investment, plus exclusive local discounts at your favorite restaurants, galleries, and more. What are you waiting for?
Wow, that is really amazing. And the first thing that I love about it, Gary, is how well you've taken advantage of tools, whether it is the voice or the narrative and so forth and so on. This is really great. What kind of response have you gotten to that video?
It's been very, very good, because we wanted to kind of capsulize some of the projects that we've worked on, and it's no better way than putting it in the video format. So it's gotten a substantial amount of hits, and we have our annual meeting coming up at the end of this month, so we'll certainly show that video as well. And we also have a couple new projects that weren't mentioned. We have every Saturday we go out and have some wonderful volunteers that clean up the highway and different parts of Amapas as well. And the number of volunteers for that particular project is growing by leaps and bounds every Saturday. So we're excited.
Let me ask you about your relationship, well, the association's relationship with the current administration. I imagine there has to be a tie with the city, either to coordinate with the city on projects that require city intervention, or simply to have the support of the people that govern our city. What has that experience been like, and what can you expect to happen with the new administration that will come on board at the end of 2024?
Yeah, fortunately, in the past, we've had a wonderful relationship with all the departments from the city, and they've been incredibly supportive of every project that we've tackled. This past administration has been challenging, and we literally have had no real support from the city, which is unfortunate. We did have a meeting with the planning department last week, and they are attempting to kind of work with us on some projects, but from the mayor and other departments, it's been challenging. And so the new interim mayor has been a longtime friend of the Amapas Neighborhood Association. So we're going to try to pick his brain and talents during the time that he has left.
Wait a second. You said the new entering mayor.
No, interim.
Oh, interim. Okay, that's a good yes. clarification, because I thought you might have some intel on the coming elections. We haven't even had them. But right. I'm grateful I'm happy to learn that you have a good relationship with the interim mayor that will continue to serve our city on that position for the remainder of this period. Let us imagine that I'm not a member of the Amapas Association just because I don't live in Amapas, but I'm drawn to the sense of community that prevails in your projects. Is there any place at the table for people that don't live in Amapas to become involved?
Sure. We actually have quite a few members from, in Conchas Chinas and also in Colonia Emiliano Zapata that joined, and they're very active volunteers. So, the majority obviously live in the Amapas area, but we'll take volunteers from wherever. So we'd love to increase our membership, increase our board members for the upcoming year. So thank you for asking.
Tell me about, because I get this question quite frequently on the broadcast. Do you have any knowledge or updates on what is going to happen along Santa Barbara Street?
No, and that question was posed with the city planning, and they were pretty quiet on any developments or non-developments there. And I think that's one of the issues that we want to get this highway safety project started, because I really feel bad for the workers that, especially that have to now come up to the highway and cut across to go down, for them to go on their day-to-day job. We heard that they're not constructing right now. They're just kind of fixing what had happened. And I believe there are probably plans that will continue to build sometime in the future. I think there's also some legal battles with the city, and that's why they're a little not saying too much information. And I think Santa Barbara, even though it's a very small street, I think it's a very important street for the city and for the area, because if something would happen on the highway that could potentially close that highway down for any given period, whether it's a couple hours, a couple weeks, couple months, there's really no place for anybody that's south of Los Pinos, which would be south of kind of where Paramount Bay is. Where would we go? Oxo, or drive up to Guadalajara, the back way. So one of the things we're trying to do is work with civil protection to come up with some kind of evacuation plan as well, because it potentially is very, very serious. And there are a lot more buildings that are being built right now, and who knows? And of course we are on a fault line. So, that creates even an additional danger.
Yes. Well, I suppose we get to wait and see on that one. I'd like to move on to another topic that I'm very curious about. But before I do that, let us close the Amapas neighborhood section with me asking you, is there anything that we haven't covered? I'm a big supporter, not so much as a member, but I applaud all the work that you are doing with the organization. Is there something that we haven't discussed that is important for you to communicate to the viewers about all the work that the Neighborhood Association is doing?
Sure. There's probably two things right now. We'd certainly like people to follow us on social media. I think for several years, social media was certainly not kind of an important component of ANA, and now we have a young gentleman that updates our pages very frequently. So if they want the latest information, especially on Facebook, everything, which I think is very important, everything is both in English and Spanish, which I think is crucial that all businesses do that. And of course, we do have a fundraiser coming up on Tuesday, March 12th, and that is over at La Huerta Grill, which used to be Rio Barbecue. It's only 250 pesos, which includes an appetizer, reserved seating, and the band Monaco. And I have not heard them live, but everybody I talk to says that the band is absolutely amazing and they sell out wherever they go. I think we've sold about 100 tickets so far. That also entitles people to get 5 raffle tickets. And we have wonderful restaurant packages, and we have trips and spa packages in the raffle. So I think everybody's going to have a good time. So it'll be from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 12th. And you can just go to our amapaspv.com website and get tickets and get more information on the association.
That is wonderful. And speaking of social media, I just read a post from you reminding us that it was you, along with Tim Longpre of PVRPV, who created the first carnival in Puerto Vallarta. Is that so?
Yeah, it was. I think there was an attempt at a carnival down in Emiliano Zapata when Peter Deep and what was the club? I just drew a blank. The club that he
Mañana,
of course. But Tim and I started the one that's really had the same route as the one last a few days ago. And we had about 30,000 spectators. We didn't get a lot of support from the businesses on the Malecon in terms of entries in the parade. So it was nice to see that the city stepped up on this particular event, even though it took off, from what I hear, a couple hours late, but better late than never. And it seemed to be more companies like National Rent-A-Car, and there was a lot of big businesses too that participated. So hopefully Puerto Vallarta will try to put itself on the carnival map, just like Mazatlan and Veracruz. I had the fortune of going to each of those in the past, and especially Mazatlan. It's absolutely unbelievable. I think it's the 3rd largest carnival in the world.
I'm not much of a carnival connoisseur. I know that in Mexico, Veracruz and Mazatlan are the largest, and I've seen photos from both, and they're truly spectacular. Let me ask you this. Do you think that Puerto Vallarta's carnival is in good hands moving forward?
I'm not sure. I know the information was very slow and even up until that day, I was getting telephone calls about what time does it start and what's the route. And I know they had the press conference a couple days before, and the Spanish publications, certainly picked up on that. But it seems like a lot of information was missing, kind of from the English side as well. So, I think it's important that both of those markets are well, information is available to them. Yeah, I've known Tim actually for quite some time, and not only were we involved with the carnival, but we also did the very successful Bomberos calendar for, I believe it was 3 or 4 years. So the photo shoots were always fun, and we sold out in the calendars, and the money from that went to different trainings that they had. And also one of the biggest, and I don't know if it continues to be the problem, but one of the calls that they get most often are for beehives, and they used to never have the outfits for to protect themselves from bees. They used to wrap themselves up in different fabric and plastic, and because there's so many different construction sites, and it posed a big problem. So the very first year we did the calendar, we bought those suits for them. So it was an exciting project.
It would seem to me, connecting all these conversations that we've had, that a lot of the way in which you have enriched your life living here in Puerto Vallarta has been through getting involved as a volunteer or creating volunteering opportunities for others. What kind of advice or incentive could you offer to the viewers of Coffee and Headlines about choosing projects or charities that are dear to their hearts and simply getting involved in transforming our city into what we want it to be?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think people really need to do their paperwork. You would think that just because they're a charity, they're doing a great job and the money's going where it should be, but as I'm sure you know, that's not the case with several local charities. So it's just very important that they do their due diligence and making sure that it's a very reputable and transparent organization.
It's been a lovely half an hour, Gary. Is there anything that we're missing on everything that we've talked about that you want to share with the audience about your process, your path, your history here, all these wonderful projects that you're involved in?
I think I am good. I think we did cover a lot in 30 minutes, and I'm looking forward to continuing the volunteer events and, of course, making Amapas Neighborhood Association even stronger. And again, appreciate this platform to spread the word. So appreciate it.
Well, for me, it's all about connections, and it's funny that we meet this way because, we connect through coffee and headlines occasionally. We exchange messages occasionally. For me, it's been a pleasure to broadcast the news that you share about the Amapas Neighborhood Association. And it is a lot of fun also to look at your personal Facebook page and see all the traveling that you're doing. But we really have to stop meeting like this, Gary Green.
Right. Exactly. We'll be sure to log in today for the members only.
I am going to thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your experience living here in Puerto Vallarta. Hopefully, it will inspire others. And for anybody that is watching, please consider getting involved in the Amapas Neighborhood Association. It is a wonderful pursuit. It's the best organized neighborhood association in the city. Others could learn a lot from all the work that you guys are doing.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gary, and I hope to run into you out and about. And thank you, everybody, from watching today's interview. And this brings us to the end of this pre-recorded broadcast. I hope you learned a little bit more about Gary, and you've learned a lot more about the wonderful pursuits that the Amapas Neighborhood Association is following in the coming months. There are lots of opportunities to get involved. And of course, I look forward to seeing you again next week on Monday morning, as usual, here at Coffee and Headlines. Between now and then, have a great weekend, and I will see you again on Monday morning. Have a good weekend.